Aloha everyone, welcome. Today we will be exploring the peak pose of Wildthing. So we'll be awakening the deep core with a very fun new exercise that I've been using like at least 10 times a day for my own body because I'm obsessed with it. It feels really good and it's very useful and practical. We'll be doing some extra back bending and some extra shoulder awakening so that you can have the best experience possible in Wildthing. So with that, let's begin by turning over to the left and meeting in Makarasana. That's belly down, hands stacked, elbows wide. And I'll tell you when to hit play on the music. For now, you can be in silence and take your time settling in and make sure the shoulders, neck, chest feel okay with the way you've positioned yourself. And then eventually let yourself relax. And if you notice any tightness in the neck or the low back or wherever it is you hold tightness, try to wiggle a little. Try to breathe awareness into that space. Try to give yourself permission to ungrip. And then bring your awareness to your breath and try to feel how the breath fills the navel and also expands the rib cage laterally. And try to relax so you're not forcing either of those actions, but you're just observing them as they happen naturally. Try to breathe some space into the back of the body, back of the heart, back of the ribs, and all the way down into the low back. And just imagine as you breathe that the cells have a little more space. You can start to feel into the spacious nature of your atoms. And let anything dense, anything heavy or tight, let that fade, not rejecting it, but just feeling into the 99.99999% of you that is endlessly vast and free of tension. If at any time the arms and shoulders are uncomfortable here, you can roll up a blanket under the forehead and then free the arms however you want, like we did last week. So feel free to do that. And we'll start with playing with some unweighting of the legs. You can hit play on the first track. Make sure it's set to loop. And before we unweight the legs, let's find our neutral pelvis. And so first exaggerate, tip the pelvis forward. And as you do that, you might actually feel the discomfort in the low back, the compression in the lumbar vertebra, hopefully not pain. And then go the other way and notice how the tailbone reaches in the space between the heels. And then try to repeat that with less and less grip, less and less intensity, with the goal being, as you ungrip, that the smaller, deeper muscles are doing the work. And you don't feel any glutes clenching. Make sure you're breathing continuously. And then start seeking the place where the tailbone is reaching straight back, so it's parallel to the earth beneath you. Might feel like the pubic bone lifts slightly, really subtly. When I find that place, I notice a sense of buoyancy and support on the front of my lumbar vertebra, so the space between the floor and the spine gets bright, supporting those intervertebral discs, maybe even creating a little extra space there. When you find the place that feels neutral and feels bright, hold it and start to breathe into it. And just notice how the breath interacting with that space changes it. I find that when I breathe into that work that I've created, I feel really strong and supported. And we don't want to create any tension as we do that. And then maintaining that neutral, now we can unweight. And so let the left leg lift just about 1 millimeter from the floor. So you're still even like touching the floor beneath you, but you feel the leg get lighter and you feel the musculature on the back of the body evenly support you. And then release. Take your time whenever you feel ready to unweight the other leg. Just start to alternate nice and slow. And try to feel how the work can disperse from the bottoms of the feet, so the plantar fascia, all the way up the hamstrings and glutes, and even all the way up through the muscles alongside the spine. Start to feel as you unweight the leg how you can actually lengthen the spine and lengthen the crown of the head forward. And in a moment, we'll be layering on some more superficial muscles. So take the time to enjoy this less is more decompression, full body decompression, right? All the way. Maybe you can feel a little more space in the ankles, a little more space in the hips and each vertebra. The next time the left foot unweights, start to kick the foot back as if you were trying to push into the wall that's behind you. And so it's still not really lifting, but it's reaching out as if you're pulling it out of the socket. And notice how you can use that work to lift the spine and start to sway the spine over to the right. And so the more you reach back with the left leg, notice how that lateral curve becomes a little easier. And then come back to center and then reach back with the right leg and notice that extra lift and the side bend that becomes possible. And take a few of those. At this point, you can drag the hands back so they're in line with the shoulders or whatever is comfortable for you. Just make sure there's a lot of nice space in the shoulders, in the neck, in the elbows. And so now we're reaching back and creating a nice long lateral curve from the side ankle all the way up the side body to the side of the neck into the ear. And the next time the head is pointed up and over to the left, start to bend the right knee, activating the hamstring, and notice if that helps you lift a little higher. Oh yeah, it worked, right? And then take a few of those, swapping sides. And we don't want to try to lift as high as possible because that's going to create strain in the back line of the body. But instead, just try to feel how you've got more support and you can feel lighter and more buoyant here. And the next time the left leg bends, start to slide the right arm long, push into the left hand, and roll all the way over the right side so you end up on your back with that left knee still bent, kind of like a bridge, half bridge setup. Pause there, reach the hands down by the feet for a moment, let the spine lengthen, and then curl the knee into the chest, grab onto the shin or the back of the thigh, and very slowly curl up to meet the thigh. And then recline, arms overhead, cross the leg over the body and reach it long, and then let the foot pull the hip, let the hip pull the spine, let the spine pull the shoulders so you slowly make it back onto the belly. And then we'll go through that same thing on the second side. So drag the hands back. Take a couple of those knee bends. swimming shalabhasana, and try to feel this evenly through the body, right? So there's no strain in the neck, no strain in the shoulders, no strain in the hamstrings, just a sense of evenness. And then the next time the right knee bends, let the left hand glide long, push into the right hand, rolling all the way onto the back. It's okay to break free of your yoga mat. Just don't break other stuff around you. Pause for a moment, let the hands float down, be aware of what your pelvis is doing, and then curl the knee in and curl up to meet the knee, feeling length through the whole spine as it gently flexes. Foot down, arms reach overhead, press into the foot to slowly roll onto the belly, and we'll do that same thing and add on. So once you make it to the belly, float up, bend one knee at a time for the swimming shalabhasana. Notice if it's starting to feel a little more natural to sway side to side. Notice if you're able to feel a buoyancy through the spine. And the next time the left knee bends, right arm goes long. Roll onto the back. Take a moment to land. Even breathe through the back body. And then pull the knee in. Slowly curl up. And we're going to learn a transition that's going to come in handy later. So lift the right leg and then drop the right leg down to help lift you all the way up to seated. Nice, great. And so from here, either shin or back of thigh, we're going to very slowly start to recline one vertebra at a time. And let the recline start from the sacrum starting to point forward, right? So feel the tailbone start to reach towards the wall in front of you, and notice how the sacrum tips, and then one vertebra at a time tips. And if this doesn't feel good, you can always go down a little faster, but try to use the hands to help you without creating any strain, just like a sense of integrating the upper and lower body. And once you've reclined, arms overhead, left leg reaches long, crossing the body. Milk this moment. I find that this can really create so much integrated strength through the whole body. So take your time trying to feel how the leg can initiate the whole roll. And then let's pause. Hands stack, elbows wide. Take a moment here. We'll do the second side in a moment, but maybe you can notice a little more energy through that left side of the body. Maybe evenly through the shoulders and the arms because they were both working. And make sure there's no tension in the neck and upper shoulders. If you're finding that, then please release the grip on the second side and be gentle and kind with yourself. And then to initiate the second side, drag the hands back, unweight the legs, letting the spine float, and then reach one leg back at a time to sway side to side. And then when you're ready, bend one knee at a time, just noticing that increase. Ooh, nice idea, Natarajani. You can float the hands if your body is feeling like it wants that extra weight, but you don't have to. And the next time the right knee bends, glide the left arm long. Roll onto the side body, hands down, land on the back. We've spent most of the time on the belly, so just notice this flip of perspective and let a little bit of tension go. And then knee into chest, curl up, and then keep that connection strong. It's going to make it easier as you lift the left leg and then drop the left leg down to roll up. Nice, Jay. And then take one moment here to sit tall. Let's try bringing the hands to the back of the thigh. I think it's going to make it easier for the recline. So start to let the tailbone point forward, right? And so that's essentially rocking the pelvis back. And then notice how you can lower. Notice how reaching the right leg forward into the hands is going to create a little bit of extra stability in the upper core and the shoulders to help you make your way down. And if this doesn't feel good, just lie all the way down and don't move so slowly. We definitely don't want to create any tension, especially in the neck and upper shoulders. Once you land onto the back, arms overhead, and I don't want to rush you. Some of you are moving really nice and slow, which always feel free to go slower than I'm going. Cross the right leg over, slowly roll onto the belly. And before we move on to our next sequence, I do want to open the pecs a little bit. So open the arms to a Y. Push the arms down, especially push the right arm down, and slowly start to lift the left leg and cross the left leg up and back. And notice how the right arm pushing down limits how much you can move the left leg. Take a few breaths into the right arm, the right chest. You do not want to feel it localized at the shoulder. If you feel it, don't let the hips open so much so you're not so intensely in the movement. Take a couple of breaths here. And then roll onto the belly. Same thing, other side. So you're pushing the left arm down. And then when you feel ready, you can roll from side to side so that the pec has the opportunity to eccentrically lengthen. That means lengthen while staying strong. And then come to neutral. And then to even slightly shorten as you come to the other side. And if you ever want to stay, you can. If you ever want to bend the elbow, you can. That's going to get into pec minor instead. You're not going to go as far. And just make sure you don't, again, feel it localized anywhere. We want this to connect the pecs all the way down into the rectus abdominis and even across the hips, so you're feeling the quads open. And after the next time you stretch the left pec, come back to center. One last Makarasana. Soak it up. And then start to walk the hands in. And we'll meet in tabletop. And actually, let's give the shoulders a break. Let's walk the hands all the way in. And we'll come up to kneeling. If you're following along with the playlist, you can go to the next track, and you can also grab a sip of water right now. Feel free to grab an additional blanket to place underneath your knees for some extra support here. And so let's start with finding our neutral pelvis. So just a few pelvic tilts here, just like we did on our belly. I find there's a lot more freedom from kneeling, so it's okay to let the pelvis tilt forward a little extra and back a little extra just to get that proprioceptive awareness. And then find what feels like neutral for you and start to breathe into today's neutral. Relax the arms down by the side, and maintaining neutral, use your exhale to slow motion float the arms to the horizon. And then inhale, release. And just take a few of these on your own, noticing what brightens. Notice if it feels symmetrical. You might have one side of your core that fires a little more readily. I do. Do you? And the next time the arms float, pause there, take a couple of breaths. Notice if this has helped you strengthen within your neutral. And then keeping shoulders, hips and knees in one straight line. Bend the knees. We'll do a few rock backs here. You'll know you're doing it right if you feel work deep in the hip. You don't want to feel any pressure in the low back, though the psoas does attach to the low back, so you might feel a strengthening. Nice. Everyone looks really good here. See if you can use this action to lengthen the occiput away from the cervical vertebra. So as the deep core turns on, you can bring that length all the way up through the crown of the head. And then the next time you float up, be at ease for a moment. My knees want a little bit break, so drop the hands down, drop the elbows down, and just draw some circles with the shoulders around the elbows. This is my favorite way to wake up the shoulders. We have to wake up the shoulders as we prepare for Wildthing later in our class. And then let's wake up the hands a little bit. So place the hands underneath the shoulders. Find your neutral spine here. Take a little extra time. I find sometimes it's tricky in tabletop. And then just breathe at neutral. And then bend the elbows as if loading a spring, and then push the hands down into the earth to bounce. And take a few of these bounces and let the hands land in a few different places. And so you'll notice as the hands land to the left, a little bit more might wake up on the left side of the body. You might feel a little bit more in that arm, in that shoulder, all the way into the back body. And just imagine you're trying to wake up all the muscles in the wrists, in the elbows, in the shoulders, in the back. And the more you can move your handprints, the more variation you'll find. Yeah, as this gets more familiar, you can jump, so to speak, a little higher. Just make sure when you land, you're not creating any tension, right? So when in doubt, stay a little lower. Let the jumps be small. The stakes are lower that way. And then place the hands down, walk them forward one handprint, tuck the toes under, and use your exhale to hover your knees away from the blanket. Inhale, release them down, and just do a couple of these. The next time the knees hover, press into the hands to send the hips up and back. Keep the knees deeply bent. Try reaching the navel towards the space between the thighs. Wag the tail a little from side to side. Relax the neck. And then lift the heels. Notice how that initiates a roll forward. Shift your shoulders over the wrists. And then reach the heels back, letting the hips lower. Pause in plank or lower the knees if that feels better. Try taking a couple of breaths here. Bend the elbows a little bit. Bring a little extra weight on the pinky side of the hand. If this doesn't feel good, you can lower to the belly. You can press back to Bhaktasana. And then let's walk the hands in. Heavy pelvis. Slowly roll up, feeling one vertebra at a time, just awakening more and more awareness through the spine. And once we land in kneeling, we'll learn our new movement that has been such a game changer, and I love it so much. Take the tiniest little tilt forward, and then stay in this tilt as you start to rock your pelvis back. Bring your fingertips inside of the hip creases. Rock your pelvis forward and back a few times, and start to notice as you rock your pelvis back that moment when the deep core turns on. So you'll feel transversus abdominis right underneath the fingertips. And the reason we want to feel that is because it means you're not using the glutes to rock the pelvis back, you're using the deeper core. The next time you rock the pelvis back, push the shins down and send the hips forward to slowly stack one vertebra at a time without losing the work of what it took to rock the pelvis back. So for me, I feel a lot of awareness in my pelvic floor and a lot of awareness in my transverse abdominis. Let's try that a couple of times because I really want you guys to find it. So you tilt forward and then you rock the pelvis back. I love that moment when the pelvis rocks back and you can feel the muscles in the low back lengthen. Feel a little brightness at the base of the pelvis, and then maintain that as you slowly roll up. For me, it's almost like the squeezing of a toothpaste tube. You know, you roll up the bottom and the whole top of the tube is like so much more spacious. Do one more on your own. And it should be very gentle and subtle. No muscles are gripping. It's just a sense of support from the bottom all the way up. And when you land in kneeling, stay there, pause, breathe. It should feel like your pelvis is naturally perfectly neutral without you having to do that work. And then let's release the hands down, paw them forward a few handprints, tuck the toes under, use your exhale to hover the knees, and then inhale, long spine. Start to sway the hips from side to side, and the next time the hips sway to the left, drag the right hand in. Hips sway to the right, drag the other hand in, and slowly allow the hands to walk in towards the feet, keeping the knees deeply bent so there's no tension in the body. So the belly's draping on the thighs. And if this doesn't feel comfortable, the hands can come to the legs so that you're in a forward fold with a lot more space. Hands can come to blocks. Anchor the big toes. Rock the weight back into the heels and let the sits bone start to drop, letting the tailbone lengthen down to the space between the heels. Push hips forward and notice how the spine starts to stack. The legs can fill and lengthen, and try to feel one vertebra at a time stacking. Head and neck come up last, and then just land in your footprints. You can be still if that feels good, or you can start to bounce the knees and let this bouncing, let all the muscles and tissues in the body sort of soften and jiggle. You can even let the jaw go. And then move your blanket off to the side so it's out of the way. Feel free to grab a sip of water. And I didn't put a third track here, and I'm regretting it. So you can skip forward to 1, 2, 3, 4 tracks to the one that's Hohensan, if you'd like to, for a little upbeat track happening. Okay, so our peak sequence is a kneeling sequence, so our standing sequence is going to be a little faster so we can make it back down to the floor. It's pretty much going to be the same sequence from last week. So let's start by exploring what we just did at kneeling from standing. So you'll tip the pelvis forward, and you don't want to go too far. Start to feel how when the pelvis tips forward, there's that moment when the multifidus, those are the really deep muscles along the spine, they support you here. So keep a neutral spine and just feel that moment where the back feels a little bit stronger as you tip forward. And the next time you tip forward, pause there, and then play with rocking the pelvis back. So that's the posterior tilt of the pelvis, and should feel like the spine, the back muscles lengthen a little bit, the pelvic floor engages. You can rock the pelvis forward a little bit, just don't overdo it because I don't want you to feel compression in the low back. So take a couple of those tilts and just notice how that posterior tilt starts to brighten the core. And again, we're not tucking the tailbone under, we're not squeezing the glutes, it's much subtler than that. The next time you initiate that tilt, slowly roll up one vertebra at a time, or just send the hips forward. And then notice how you land a little bit differently in your Tadasana. You can release the hands down if you want and just be there for a moment. And then hopefully that helped you find a very nice neutral spine and bright core. Let's take a couple of exhales to float the arms to the horizon, just adding a little extra work. Slower is stronger. The next time the arms float, press the left foot down and let the right arm reach up and back, and try to feel that cross connection from the right shoulder all the way down into the front of the left foot. And then come back the way you came Same thing other side. So right foot pushes down. Take a couple of these on your own and start to notice if your body's craving more of a back bend, and just give yourself permission to extend, but it should always feel even through the whole body, right? Never any compression in the low back. I find that when I have a really good back bend, I'm getting a lot of hip extension. So I'm feeling like a lot of space in the front of my hip and zero compression in the low back. That's kind of my litmus test. Next time left arm goes up and back, you're balanced. Can come back to center, shift the weight into the left foot, and take a few nice easy leg swings. With the right foot, sorry. Right leg swinging. And the next time the right foot comes behind you, bend the right knee, catch the outside of the ankle. This one's for you, Natarajasani. We'll do Natarajasana. So anchor the left big toe down. Gently start to kick the foot and hand together, extending through the front of the hip. Float the left hand just to the horizon. And then just for fun, explore that same circle, reaching the left hand forward, up and back as you kick the right foot into the hand. So before it was pushing into the floor, now it's pushing into the hand. And just notice that space from left shoulder to right hip. And then release the right foot. Let it kick forward, taking you nice, easy to heel stance. Take a moment to tip your pelvis forward and back a couple of times. The next time it's forward, try that gentle dropping of the tailbone, right? Letting the pelvis rock back, feeling that engagement through the deep abdominals and the pelvic floor. And then slowly roll up from there, bend the front knee, float the arms either to the horizon, or if you're craving some extra extension, you can go all the way up. It's up to you. And so hopefully that deep core work has stayed with you. Try to keep it as you shift forward into Virabhadrasana 3. And it can be a little, you don't have to go very deep here. Try reaching the left heel back, the crown of the head forward. Try to feel that work, that gentle work of the pelvis tipping back to create that brightness between the sits bones and up through the deep abdominals. And then very slowly lift up back to Tadasana. Pause. Absorb. And then take some bounces and start to circle all the way around on the mat. And then circle all the way around the other way until you're landing facing the opposite direction to do the second side. So let's start with those pelvic tilts. We'll flex at the hips. And then just rock the pelvis forward and back a couple of times. Let it be super gentle. Next time the pelvis rocks back, feel the support at the base of the pelvis and keep it as you slowly come all the way up, and just notice any sense of brightness, any sense of even engagement. There's a little bit in the glutes, but it's mostly in the deep core. And then shift the weight into the right foot and take your leg swings with your left foot. And see, with the leg moving all over the place, see if you can maintain that neutral pelvis, right? The leg is going to try to take the pelvis out of neutral. And the next time the leg swings back, catch the foot. Take a moment to level the pelvis and extend the spine. And then let the left knee come behind the right leg. Gently kick foot into the hand to extend through the front of that left hip, all the way up through the spine, nice and evenly, Natarajasana. And then float the right arm. Stay here, or like we did on the first side, play with reaching the left knee down and back as if you were pushing it down into the earth. Let the right hand reach forward, up and back, lengthening that cross from left hip to right shoulder. And then release arm and leg. Let the leg swing forward, stepping naturally into Virabhadrasana 1 setup. Take a moment to tip the pelvis forward, and then from that flexed hip position, take a few pelvic rocks. And just notice the brightness that's possible as the pelvis rocks back. Use that to come back to neutral, feeling really stable and anchored in the deep core. Bend the front knee. Equal weight in both feet. Use your exhale, hover arms to the horizon or take it all the way up depending on what the body is craving. Visualize yourself in Virabhadrasana 3 before going there. And when you're ready, bend a little deeper into the left knee. Let the arms swing. Shift the weight forward. You don't have to go very far. I'd rather you feel really buoyant and light and maybe be at a 45-degree angle instead of a 90-degree angle. Try to feel how the back floating leg relates to the deep core all the way up to the spine. And then slowly press down into the left leg to unhinge. Let the right leg land and pause for a moment in stillness and just take in the energetic experience of that sequence. Feel free to grab a sip of water. At the beginning of class, I demoed a transition that might have needed some blocks. So if you wanted blocks for that transition from here to here, grab your blocks, place them off to the side in the middle, and we'll all meet where we just left off, standing in Tadasana, facing the right side of our mat. So if you're doing it right, your left shoulder should be towards me. And from here, start to take a few hinges into chair pose, letting the hips reach back as the arms sweep forward, and notice how the reaching of the arms helps you pull the hips a little bit lower. The next time you lower into chair, anchor the big toes, take a couple of breaths here, and play with that same tipping of the pelvis. See if you can find a nice neutral. A lot of times we sway the pelvis forward here, so notice the place where you have that nice feeling of length and avoiding all compression in the low back, and then just melt the body over the legs. Start to sway the hips from side to side and sneak the hands forward, keeping a deep bend in the knee. And then let's meet in plank pose. From plank, bend the knees, press into the hands to send the hips upward, and take a few springs in the legs. Notice how as you bend the knees and then let them go, the hips want to almost shoot forward. The next time you try it, take the right leg with you and see how effortlessly you can step the right leg forward with that momentum. Nice. Yeah, you can. Great. You got it. Okay, so from here, lower the back knee, slowly roll up to Anjaneyasana, hover the arms. See if you can find that deep core work in the pelvis without isolating it. If you need to, as we repeat the sequence over and over, you can always tilt the pelvis and then find that rock back, but maybe you can find it a little faster now. Push the left knee down, let the right arm circle up and back, that same cross action we've been playing with in so many poses. Feel the space from the left knee to the right shoulder, and then just like a rubber band, let that go so the hand snaps back. This is where you might want your blocks. We're going to actually turn the feet and sneak all the way over to the other side, and notice how the left leg just wants to send back to plank. And as we repeat this again, I want you to feel how when you land in plank, it's like your body is extra stable from doing that big spiral to get there. So let's try it going in the opposite direction. Bend the knees, press into the hands, hips up and back. Take a couple of bounces, and then take your left leg forward into the lunge. Right knee down. Slow roll up. Exhale, hands to the horizon, and then push the right knee down as you lift the left fingers up and back into that big circle, and imagine that rubber band from right knee to left hand. Imagine it stretching and pulling, and then you let it go. It folds you forward, and then take that momentum all the way over to the right this time. Right foot glides back into plank. Nice. So knees down, hips to heels, palms face up. Take a moment. We're going to be repeating that sequence several times, adding some new layers on. And so if you need to take it slow, if there's anywhere you want to pause, if there's anything you want to add, or if you want to just repeat it like we just did and not add anything, you're more than welcome to. So this is kind of the culmination of class, and it's up to you how you explore it. All right, let's meet in down dog. And bend the knees, starting to prepare the springs of the legs. You can take a couple of bounces, and then the next time the hips shoot forward, let the right foot step. Lower the left knee. Equal weight in both legs is going to help turn on the deep core. Slowly roll up, hands to the horizon. And then push the left knee down to circle the right arm up and back. And then let that all release, hands down. Remember, you've got the option to use blocks as you transition over to the other side so you feel nice and spacious. And then you step right back into plank. Take a breath in plank, and then this time lift the right leg, slowly step the right foot behind you, and then lower the hips all the way down into that position we practiced before. Right? So from here, I like to enter Wildthing from the bottom up instead of the top down. So we're going to take a few pulses to get there. Don't rush. Push into the right foot, left heel, and left hand just to lift the hips. And then set everything down and give yourself permission to adjust that tripod. Take a couple of pulses. Actually, take a bunch of pulses. And each one, learn something. Learn something about how to best support your shoulder. Learn something about how to best support your low back. Try to feel that cross connection we've been playing with as the left heel pushes down the space that's created. Actually, it's more right heel into the left shoulder, excuse me. There is a little bit of back bend here. And the next time the hips come down, move your blocks out of the way if you're using them. We'll grab behind the thigh and we'll slowly roll all the way down, just like we practiced before. And take a moment on the back. Let the arms reach overhead and just pause. Breathe into the heart. Let everything relax. And then start to curl the right knee in, hands catch the shin, roll up, and then as you recline, arms overhead once again, cross the right leg over the body, slowly rolling onto the belly. Drag the hands back, and however you want to, maybe up through a push-up, up through a tabletop, we'll meet in downward facing dog for the second side. So from down dog, you'll take a couple of bounces, and then you'll pulse the left foot forward as effortlessly and springy as you can. Lower the right knee down, flatten the top of the right foot, and then send the hips forward to slowly roll up. The exhale will take the hands to the horizon. Push the right knee down, let the left arm reach forward, up and back, loading that rubber band. And then let it go so it springs you forward and all the way over to the right. Let the right foot glide back, pausing in your plank. And then let the right foot step over the body, slowly lowering the hips down. Is this the second side? Was that a no, RT? Other side. Okay, wait. Give me a thumbs up if we're on the correct side. Okay. Okay, so this is great. You're going to learn an awesome transition. Jump the right foot over the left foot, back to where we came from. slide the right leg back. Yeah, I was like, we're supposed to be on the far side of the mat, but that's what my body wanted to do. So now the left leg lifts, steps over, lower the hips immediately because you don't want any strain. And then here's our tripod, right? Right heel, left foot, right arm. Let the hips lift just a little bit and then lower them down and take a few pulses and assume with each pulse that you're going to adjust the angle of your hand, that you're going to adjust where that left foot is. You're going to find a place where it feels as spacious as possible to let the heart open. And then the next time the hips come down, grab the shin, grab behind the thigh, and take your time slowly lowering all the way down. This time, hug the knee into the chest and curl up right away, and then release. So the sole of the foot comes just in front of the hips and the arms can reach at any angle that feels good. I have mine kind of at a W so my shoulders can relax for a moment. And slowly cross the left leg over the right, rolling onto the belly. Stack the hands, elbows wide, and pause in Makarasana. Just lengthening the breath, noticing the sensations through the hips and the shoulders. And then walk the hands back underneath the shoulders and press the hips back to the heels really slowly. Tent the fingertips, so you're pressing into the fingertips, and just notice any space that's created in the wrists and the shoulders. And then imagine the fingers like little spiders and let them start to roam around your mat. Walking them towards you, walking them to one side, walking them behind you, just letting the arms and shoulders move beyond thought. And then let the fingers walk their way underneath your shoulders and slowly roll up so you're seated on your heels. Interlace the fingers, wrists together. You can turn to face me if it's easier to see. And keep the wrists together as you draw some circles. Just visualize a lot of space through the wrists. This should feel good, so if it doesn't, don't do it. Switch the interlace of the hands and try going the opposite way. It's okay if it feels a little rickety, but try to smooth it out. Check in with the neck just to make sure the shoulders aren't up as you do this. And then bring the hands together at the heart, and then bring the left pinky into the chest so that the wrist is twisting. Grab the left thumb with the right hand and really gently pry the hand open just to stretch through the wrist. Relax the neck and shoulder. You can sway a little bit if the body's craving that. And then we'll swap hands. So now from Anjali Mudra, flip the right pinky in so that the palm is facing to the right. Grab the left thumb and start to peel it open really gently. You never want to be forceful with these movements, just kind. And then release the hands into the lap and just take a moment to absorb and soften. And we'll head into our restorative pose, and you've got a couple of different options. We're going to do a gentle inversion. I like to do a couple of blankets up on blocks. You could do a deeper inversion with the legs up on a chair or a couch. If you are using a piece of furniture, make sure to put a blanket on top if it's not squishy and soft already, so that where your legs are resting feels really supportive. And then I love using a strap here. It's not a game changer, like if you really don't want to go grab one, but or I should say it's not a deal breaker, but it is a game changer. The strap can go over the top blanket, and it will help stabilize your legs as you relax so that the muscles in the legs can relax completely. If you are using the strap, I recommend having it above the knees, so closer to the hips than the knees. That's where I find it the most stabilizing. And it doesn't need to be tight, just tight enough that as the legs relax, they don't go wider than hips distance. So you can take a moment to figure that out. If you don't have a strap, placing a blanket over the legs and kind of like tucking yourself in could also provide that. And before we recline, let's play with a little bit of forward folding. This is already a deep forward fold, so you might not feel like you want to come forward at all, which is fine. If the body's craving it, you can gently walk the hands forward and just try to feel an even lengthening through the whole spine, and avoid dropping the neck. You want the head and neck to feel like one smooth curve from the base of the spine. And then push the legs down to slowly roll up. Let the hands come behind you. Let the heart open. And do this a couple of times, either coming to neutral or coming to the forward fold. Just letting this waving movement of the spine work out any tightness. Let it help you find a symmetry. And there is a participation of the shoulders, so we did a lot on the hands and the shoulders, and let this help massage those areas as well. And if the wrists or shoulders are feeling sensitive, you can avoid putting too much weight in them and let more of the support come from the core and from the spine, and just let the arms and shoulders sort of slide around without supporting you too much. And as you're ready, you can scoot the hips in towards your prop and start to recline, maybe one vertebra at a time. It's okay to support yourself with your forearms as you do that. And then let the body land, and notice if you feel spacious. If you don't, give yourself permission to wiggle around, lengthen through the spine. You can even play with some pelvic tilts. But then eventually, once you've found your resting spot, let go of any effort, even if it means the pelvis tips a little. And I apologize I didn't say this sooner. You can pause your music at this point. It is really beneficial to do restorative poses in silence. And close the mouth if possible, and notice how rich the breath is now that the body has come to stillness. And try to follow the breath inside, letting it guide you towards the heart or the navel, whatever feels appropriate for your practice right now. And as you keep the awareness at the heart or the navel, see how deeply you can relax. You can close the eyes. And we'll rest here for several minutes before Shavasana. And just make sure you've let go completely of any holding in the hips and the legs and the shoulders. And just let yourself be completely relaxed for the next few minutes. You're welcome to stay here as you rest. You're also welcome to transition into Shavasana and just make sure your Shavasana is supported. And we do have time for a nice long 15-minute Shavasana, and I recommend focusing on the breath and trying to stay conscious, though deeply relaxed. There are very different benefits from non-sleep deep relaxation versus just taking a nap. And so you can use the breath as your focal point as you let all of the tension in the body release. And just let yourself be for the next 10 to 15 minutes. Take a moment to just be. Observe the breath and notice its fluidity and depth from this very relaxed space. And visualize yourself sitting in meditation, completely effortlessly, completely free of tension, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, energetically. And visualize your most radiant form, just beaming with joy, consciousness. And then eventually, when it feels right for you, you can start to gently wake up the body and take any movements that the body's craving. And take your time. Enjoy the experience of having a body, of listening to it, of feeling. And eventually you can start to make your way up to seated, but again, no need to rush. And take your time supporting yourself, finding your most beneficial meditation seat, assuming it will be different right now after almost 90 minutes of practice compared to first thing in the morning. Find it for the first time. And if you naturally just lock in, you do not have to do this last pelvic tilt, but I have been using this in my own practice, so if you want to try it, I'm sorry I zoomed in too much, but we've done it a bunch of times, so I think you get it. From here you can just rock the pelvis forward, right, just like we did from kneeling and standing, and then staying in that tilted forward position. Allow the pelvis to gently rock back without moving your spine, right? And so as the pelvic tilt happens, you'll feel the low back lengthen, you'll feel the deep core brighten. And once you've found that, maintain it as you come back to upright and just notice any different sense of support in your meditation seat. And if you feel like you need to try that a couple of times, you're more than welcome to. And then eventually let yourself become still. Notice any sense of comfort or safety you've cultivated through your practice. And then give yourself permission to transcend your physical body. Just assume it's supported, it's taken care of, you've done the work. And let yourself become completely fixated on your breath. And usually after Shavasana, it's slow and steady, so Just witness if that's your experience. And without any strain, start to notice the space between each breath, the pause after you inhale, the pause after you exhale. And let yourself exist in that space. The next time the inhale arrives, you can attach the mantra, hum, and then sa with your next exhale. And just feel that hang time, the top of the inhale before the breath changes directions, kind of like you're on a swing and you're right at the top before you start to swing back down. And the same thing, the bottom of the exhale, just like you're at the back of that swing arc. That moment of hang time, suspension. And you don't have to do anything. Gravity just acts. Have that same trust with the breath. And let the breath be soothing and grounding, and just as velvety as melted ghee pouring from a teapot. And simultaneously be aware of the space, not just between the breaths, but the space that contains the breath. And from this place of spaciousness, imagine floating above all of your tensions. They're still real, they're still there, but they don't weigh on you. And both realities can be true at the same time, that you're human and you have karma and challenges, yet you are this supremely blissful spirit that's completely infinite and unperturbed. I'll close with the tension release practice that's extra essential when you've gotten space from your tension and your tightness. And so imagine the heart kind of like a magnet attracting all the residual sludge, the little filaments of tension that have made their way into all the nooks and crannies of your psychic system. Imagine them all pulling to the heart, preparing to be released. You can release your hands to either side of the hips, fingertips resting on your blanket or the floor. And start to feel the inhale as it washes up over the third eye. And let it swoop down past the throat into the heart, where it starts to mix with those tensions. Find that suspension, just like we did at the top of the inhale during meditation. Stay there as long as it's comfortable without any strain. And then let the exhale wash out of the arms, out towards the shoulders, down to the center of the palm, the fingertips, and then into the earth where it's neutralized. It's just energy, only exists as tension within you. And so each breath will follow that pathway, but now we'll add a visualization. And so the next inhale, you can imagine the cleanest, purest, sparkly water coming in with the breath, washing over forehead, throat, and heart, and starting to mix with all that tension. The mixture becomes murky and cloudy and muddy. And you stay there letting the mixing happen. And then exhale to let the sludge leave the body through the central channel of palms and fingertips. Can continue with that breath and that visualization, and the next time the heart is suspended, or the breath is suspended at the heart, we'll add in Rudy's mantra. I deeply wish to release all negative psychic tension. Stay there as long as it's comfortable. And then exhale to let it all pour out of the body. Take a few more on your own. And take one more. And on the bottom of your next exhale, let your hands float and just let that vacuum pull all of the last tension out of the heart space. And then shake out the fingers, flick out the arms. As you do that, you can imagine it's still pouring out of you. And then just let the arms rest. Let the attention rest. And notice any shift in your being. Namaste. And take care, everyone. Thanks for practicing. If you've got any questions about your shoulders or anything we did in class, feel free to unmute or ask in a future class, and I'll see you all soon.